Hello folks, and welcome back. I know it's been a minute, it's been a few days. My voice was gone because I was ill. We're back looking at the Stockholm Regional Championships. Now, I do apologize. I'll probably be talking a little bit quieter and a little bit slower here. This match is also a doozy. You'll notice by the timestamp of how long this video is. I have my lemon ginger honey tea, and we'll be taking some chat breaks here and there. So we're looking at Marcus Co versus Francesco Pio here today. We're not going to take a look at the teams as a whole because they did it in a weird order here, but this is what we're looking at. Calyrex with Ndidi, a Dondoza Tatsugiri duo, Wheezing, and Roaring Moon up against a bulkier Terapagos, that Calm Mind leftover set. Rillaboom with the Assault Vest, Incineroar with Rocky Helmet. This does not have Flare Blitz on the Incineroar. It is a Will-O-Wisp Taunt Incineroar. We have Screamtail. I always want to call it Jigglypuff. We have Screamtail here. It does have Dazzling. It does have an attacking move, but it's that disable Encore Shenanigans. Ogerpon Cornerstone Mask, and then Heatran. Heatran is a little bit on the bulkier side with that Citrus Berry, a little bit more defensive, but can still dish out a decent chunk of damage here. Now, coming into this for Francesco on the other side, Terapagos is your main damage dealer, but it doesn't really like matching up against the Calyrex here for Marcus. We do see the Galarian Wheezing and the Calyrex as the lead for Marcus, and Francesco Pio Pro leads with the Incineroar and the Terapagos. Now, notably, one big thing about this Calyrex that was not seen on the previous image that we saw. This Calyrex is Terra fighting Terra Blast. It's incredibly cool and makes the Terapagos matchup even better. Well, not even necessarily even better. Honestly, I'm quite frankly a little worried about it. But this does give Francesco here, with the Terapagos on the field, you maybe don't feel too bad about going for that Terra Blast if you are this Calyrex. And so Francesco has this really interesting choice here. Where do you get the fake out into? Because Wheezing has the Covert Cloak, and we do see it goes into the Calyrex here, anticipating the potential Terra Blast, which could be pretty big in the long term. Terapagos does go for the substitute here. Like I said, this thing is incredibly bulky, so it's just going to stay super healthy. And because of the weird way Terra Shell interacts, substitute has the ability Terra Shell now, which is nuts. We do see the toxic spikes get laid down, so whenever Francesco swaps something in, it is going to get hit with that first layer of poison. If we do see the second layer spikes get used again, that will inflict the toxic status, which just incrementally increases the amount of poison damage that you take. Now, Incineroar here, knockoff into the Calyrex is not a bad option, but you do know that you're going up against Terra Fighting. Fighting Terastallization, not too crazy here. If you are Francesco, this maybe is an opportunity that you just go for Terra Starstorm here, because it'll be super effective on the Calyrex, but not a guarantee. And we see the Rillaboom come out now. So, Fake Out Pressure reapplied, as well as the grassy terrain. This Terapagos is going to be consistently healing up a ton. And it's not poisoned, at least not yet. This Wheezing does have Poison Gas, which goes past a substitute, which could, in the long run of this game, turn out to be pretty important. We do see the Terastallization here coming out for the Calyrex. Terra Fighting Terra Blast here feels pretty good into either slot. Notably, the Incineroar doesn't have a substitute up. So going Terra Fighting Terra Blast into that slot, not too bad. You get some damage off into this Rillaboom. It's going to do about it does about a third of its HP. And now this Wheezing gets to make a move. It could go for the Poison Gas, or Calm Mind is going to come out first from the Terapagos there. Not too surprising. It's going to get bulked up. It's going to make this Calyrex much more annoying, or much more annoyed having to deal with it, because Calyrex is going to be the primary answer. Unless, of course, this Wheezing goes for the Poison Gas. It is not Poison Gas. It's Strange Steam into the Rillaboom here. I think if you're Marcus Co, that you're reading the calculation that the Incineroar doesn't go down just to the Terra Blast, so Strange Team might have gotten the last of that KO. The Poison takes Rillaboom down into a guaranteed Terrifying Terra Blast KO, and it potentially takes it down to where Strange Team plus Poison Tick will KO it. I think it might. But now, once again, for Marcus Co, Calyrex has to worry about Fake Out. Wouldn't be surprised to see it Protect here. Now, Terapagos has the opportunity at any point to Terastallize, and it's not going to be too mad about it. It'll, even with just a +1 on the Calm Mind, that should do more than enough damage to the Shadow Rider here. For the Wheezing, I feel like if you're Marcus, getting that damage onto the Terapagos could be big. Honestly, this Calyrex is in a pretty tough spot with it. This substitute is going to be incredibly difficult to take down for Marcus, and so we see Francesco going for that Terastallization here. I'm incredibly interested if we are going to see that Terra Stellar or the Terra Starstorm with that substitute still up. Wouldn't be too shocked if we see that Terapagos go for another Calm Mind potentially. It is already relatively tanky with that, and it has that substitute up. Getting double Calm Minds up, especially when you have Fake Out access right here, feels really good. Both Pokemon for Marcus go for Protect here. Weezing guaranteeing that it doesn't take any additional damage, and Rillaboom does not go for the Fake Out, was just going for the U-turn. Also, this is pretty big. I said Grassy Terrain was up. It's not up yet. Weezing preventing those abilities is absolutely massive, so getting that Grassy Terrain up is going to be very, very difficult for Francesco while this Weezing is active. Now, we do see the Terra Star Storm come out for Francesco here. We do see the Leftovers recovery. There is no more Terra Shell now for this Tropicos, but it is a lot bulkier thanks to its Terastallization ability. We do see Rillaboom getting increasingly lower on that poison. It'll go down to a Stiff Breeze. I don't think, and again, there's no Grassy Terrain, so it won't be able to Grassy Glide. It would have to be a hard switch for the Rillaboom, potentially into Incineroar. But at the same time, I think if you're Francesco, if you're terribly worried about getting the Grassy Terrain up, that's why you would want to switch Rillaboom out. But there's also a world where you just let the Rillaboom go down so you don't take any additional damage on this turn. You go for an attack, try to get something off into potentially the Weezing or the Calyrex, just to see, hopefully, maybe. And then from there, you bring the Incineroar in or your fourth Pokemon in and try to start getting to work with that Terapagos. We do see for Marcus, though, in the back, it is that Dondozo Tatsugiri combo. Incredibly bulky. Even up against a multiple Calm Mind Boost Terapagos, it's going to be very, very hard to deal with if both those Pokemon are coming in, which I believe they are. Yeah, the Weezing does get swapped out. That is going to trigger Grassy Terrain for the Rillaboom here. That's going to be pretty big. And so we're going to see the Dondozo Tatsugiri combo. Commander is going to come out and be active. Now, if you are Francesco, getting the Rillaboom swapped out here, cycling through with the Incineroar doesn't feel too bad. However, Dondozo is unaware. That means that all these stat changes just kind of, that Francesco has, just kind of don't matter. The Calm Mind Boost that Terapagos is getting won't do anything in the long term for Francesco. The main thing would be is like you're looking at how much chip damage the Dondozo and Terapagos can do to each other. But I don't know that that is going to be a long-term solution. It's whenever you're getting into those incredibly long games for either player here, both these players have, quite frankly, incredibly defensive options at their disposals. You have this Terapagos with Leftovers. You have the Grassy Terrain up. Dondozo is a good Pokemon. It can hit pretty hard, but as we see here, even with the U-turn and then the Terra Star Storm on top of that, Dondozo takes maybe a third of its HP. The Grassy Terrain is healing it up. Tropicos is at full health. It has that substitute up. The substitute is going to stay up through a lot of things. I feel like it probably should be going down within a couple attacks from this Dondozo, but we'll have to see. And Dondozo is now subject to Fake Out from this Incineroar. So if you're Francesco, you can go for the Fake Out if you want to. You also don't have to. You can go for potentially a knockoff, which I'm not sure if that would be too important. You can go for Parting Shot. And this Tropicos can just go for another Calm Mind. But again, Calm Mind doesn't do anything against this Dondozo. You're Calm Minding to deal with the Calyrex in the back. And quite frankly, I think if you're Francesco at this point, you have enough Calm Mind boosts that just doesn't matter. And right now, I think if you're like your option is to try to cycle out this Incineroar, Rillaboom eventually going to go down. You can swap out Incineroar maybe with Parting Shot. Incineroar might be able to survive. Francesco knows that it's both Ice Fang and Earthquake. Incineroar might be able to survive an Earthquake plus Poison Tick damage here after that Intimidate. I'm not, never entirely sure, but it's a very bulky Pokemon. Ice Fang into the Incineroar would be interesting because I believe that should do recoil damage because it's a contact move. But we do also see that this is Sleep Talk Dondozo. So this thing is going to be even more difficult to deal with. It heals off all of that damage that Francesco worked so hard to put on it. And even if we do, and we don't get a Fake Out here either, by the way, that is guaranteed, which again, a little bit interesting. It doesn't, that the Dondozo doesn't have Protect for Francesco. So hitting Fake Out plus... Interesting. Yeah, I feel like hitting Fake Out plus trying to get damage out on that turn is just like your potential. I guess if you're Francesco, you're still thinking about rest, right? You're still conscious that move could come out, but I think the combination of maybe, maybe not, because I think Fake Out plus how much damage we saw Terra Star Storm do before does not guarantee. I don't think that takes Dondozo under half, or at least not far enough under half where Grassy Terrain doesn't just erase that. Honestly, if you're Francesco here, I think you bring in Rillaboom, let Rillaboom go down so that this Dondozo gets less healing turn over turn. We do see the Parting Shot from the Incineroar, and we do see Screamtail come in. Screamtail can go for Disable. Notably, Encore here does not work on Sleep Talk. So Screamtail is not faster than the Dondozo. Disable. Encore does not work on Sleep Talk. There's some really weird corner case rulings with Sleep Talk here, which could potentially come up, or with Encore here, which could potentially come up, you can't Encore a Pokemon into a move that could potentially then choose Encore. In which case you would be locked into, both Pokemon would potentially be locked into just Encoring each other infinitely until the game ended and both Pokemon had to struggle to death. So we see the Protect here come out of the Screamtail. It is just going to be Sleep Talk selected by Marcus Go here. Honestly, if you're Francesco, Dondozo stays asleep. If you're fast enough for Francesco, actually, I don't know. Dondozo's probably faster than the Screamtail here. Most likely, even with that boost, although I'm not certain. Now, we do see the Earthquake come out here. Substitute is going to be the only thing that gets hit here. I'm interested to see if it'll break. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think it still stays up. Substitute stays up. That is pretty impressive here. And we get another Calm Mind out of this Terapagos. Again, I guess if you're Francesco, I feel like these are the turns where if you're Francesco, you have to start going for some damage. Again, like, you have infinite special attack and special defense boost, but that just does not matter in the face of Dondozo. I think you're at the point where Terapagos can quite frankly just 1v for this if you can start getting the damage out and that damage can stick onto the Dondozo. Now, quite frankly, Marcus is in a really good spot now. You can't Encore a player into Sleep Talk, and you can just keep clicking Sleep Talk here. Your Dondozo should be faster. You'll be able to rest. Honestly, I think the only thing you have to be worried about if you are Marcus is the turn that you click Rest again. Does Francesco go for Encore? That is the only point where you're in a considerable amount of danger of getting infinitely Encored, because if you can't rest, I think that's the big problem for Marcus. We see the Encore come through, but it fails into the Dondozo. Sleep Talk, again, you cannot Encore Sleep Talk. It simply doesn't work. We do see Sleep Talk get used, though. Again, Ice Fang, Rest, and Earthquake are all options. And, okay, so it clicked Sleep Talk. That is what it selected. Or I think it clicked Rest, potentially. So, selected an inusable move. And we do see the Terapagos go for another Calm Mind. So, Francesco, once again, just not going for any damage here. And this is where we get into a bit of a podcast. So, right now, situation at hand. Francesco has three Pokemon that are poisoned. They are very, very slowly going to tick down. Time is going to be probably a win condition for either player right now, but more so for Marcus than Francesco. Francesco's Rillaboom is at incredibly low HP, Incineroar is damaged, Screamtail is damaged. For Marcus, Tatsugiri is at full HP, Weezing is, I believe, still at full HP, and I think Shadow Rider might have taken a tick of damage, maybe, but not very much. I think potentially if you're Francesco, your goal would be to try to get more damage onto the Dondozo than is done to your entire team, but I don't even think that works percentage-wise. So we do see the Dazzling Gleam come out of the Screamtail here. That's going to be doing even less damage than what would happen with the rest of, or than what Grass Tyranny is going to heal. It is a critical hit on the Screamtail, but does not do very much damage, and it still doesn't break the Substitute. We do see the Terra Starstorm coming out again. This should do a pretty good chunk here. I don't know how much, but I think it'll do, like we saw it do about 60 damage before, I think. I imagine that's what it's going to do. That feels like it did even less, quite frankly. And so now the combination of Grassy Terrain and Rest should just guarantee that this Dondozo is never going down. Okay, yeah, looking at this now, I am pretty sure Grassy Terrain is healing off the same amount of damage that the Terapagos is taking. And again, if you are Francesco, I don't believe that this, or I think that you're faster than the Dondozo here. So you go Disable potentially on Earthquake, or you Encore it into Earthquake. I think that is what you do now for Francesco. That's your goal, is to Encore this thing into Earthquake, which is apparently your best option. Or you Encore it into Rest, which I don't think I don't think Rest has that weird interaction where it can't be Encored. We do see Encore come through. The Screamtail is faster, as I was thinking. I wasn't sure, but I was thinking. And now we're going to see Earthquakes. This is probably the best bet for Francesco. Maybe. The question becomes, how much damage can this Screamtail plus Terapagos do? The answer is not much, but for at least a few turns here, Dondozo is not going to be able to heal anything off. Now, the question becomes, does Incineroar coming in, lowering Dondozo's attack, clicking Knockoff, potentially getting some extra damage there, mean more than what Screamtail is doing? Potentially. I don't know if Francesco wants to lose a Pokemon, right? especially not this Screamtail. Like if Francesco swaps the Screamtail out here, brings the Incineroar in, or brings the Rillaboom in, goes for, like, lets the Rillaboom go down and Disable comes through, that could be it. But the Disable goes into the Dondozo here. Dondozo is incredibly tanky, so I don't know if there's even going to be enough damage paired with the struggle percent HP damage that is going to be dealt here to KO this thing. I think it'll still survive, even through the struggle Disable, because it should be able to rest before it KOs itself. We do see the Terra Starstorm come out. We are going to see that Earthquake has failed, so that is not any damage here. Encore only has one more turn. The question is, so this turn is going to end with Dondozo no longer being encored. It's going to deal some damage to itself. That is going to leave Screamtail with one more time that it can encore the Dondozo. I don't know that 3 turns of, well, math-wise, I think that might work out. I think 3 turns of dealing damage might do it. We do see, however, that Marcus Coe is taking as much time, or like one of these players, I think it's Francesco even, is taking quite a lot of time on deciding this. If you're Francesco, yeah, okay, this is the problem. This might be the misplay here. This might be what ends up losing it, because they're like, Marcus is only disabled for one more, disabled on this encore move for this last turn. Incineroar would need to switch out on essentially right now to make this happen. Dondozo does get hurt by the Rocky Helmet. That's a lot more recoil damage stacked on top. Okay, that might be it. Stacked on top of recoil damage from struggle. The Rocky Helmet recoil damage, now that might be enough to KO this thing. This is going to be, okay, so yeah, it's about 30 damage. I think this would have put Dondozo down back into like the 70 or 80 HP damage range without the Rocky Helmet recoil. So Dondozo could potentially rest here, but Francesco can go for Fake Out and Terra Starstorm. I think if you're Marcus, the safe bet is to let Screamtail continuously fall to the poison. I don't know. That's hard. If Screamtail stays in, you can try to KO it there. But the swap into Rocky Helmet is a really smart move from Francesco. That is, I know I said that was a misplay. I was incorrect. I was absolutely incorrect, because I was like, oh, no, you leave the Screamtail in. But struggling to Screamtail potentially means that it's KO'd. Potentially. I don't think it does, quite frankly. Struggle does nothing. But it does mean Screamtail is potentially KO'd from the poison, and you don't get the Rocky Helmet damage. Rocky Helmet damage is very, very good. You are going to get hit by Fake Out, though. Does Unaware care about Fake Out? Fake Out comes through, does no damage to the Dondozo here, but it does do some Rocky Helmet damage back to the Incineroar, and that does flinch the Dondozo. So Terra Starstorm is going to come through. This should KO. We just saw it do 32 damage. That should do the exact same thing here, unless that was an incredibly high roll before, and this is an incredibly low roll here. No, Dondozo finally goes down. So one Pokemon for one Pokemon. However, Francesco still has 2 Pokemon that are poisoned and getting lower and lower. Incineroar not feeling too hot here. The Screamtail is incredibly low. Tatsugiri does have the Focus Sash. Calyrex does have a little bit of chip damage on it. I believe that, I don't even think that Francesco did that. I believe that is Life Orb damage that has been done. Now, we do see 3 minutes left on the battle timer, and we see Marcus taking his time. This game, telling you right now, is going to go to time. This is going to be a slow plotting game. If you are Marcus, that is the end game that you want to have. The problem becomes, the threat now becomes, there is this Terapagos on the other side of the field that is incredibly tanky. Your Calyrex is not going to have a very good time into it. You're going to have to go through a lot of protect cycles, a lot of cycling through various different ways to maneuver this Terapagos into not being able to take enough KOs to win this game. Now, Substitute should be pretty low here. It will likely be able to go down in one more attack if Marcus wants to go for that. I am interested to see. I actually do not know what this Tatsugiri's moves are. I do not remember. So it's Draco Meteor, Muddy Water. Muddy Water accuracy drops could be the key to taking this to time for Marcus. Because right now, this Terapagos is going to be one-shotting anything that does not have a Focus Sash. We see the Protect come out. The Tatsugiri does have a Focus Sash, so it'll be able to survive for at least a turn here. Fake Out comes, well, Fake Out was going to fail no matter what. It was already on the field. That is incredibly interesting. Muddy Water comes through. I am intrigued as to why you do not knock off the Tatsugiri. Anyways, so We see Tropicos go for another Calm Mind. I believe both of these players are going to time. Okay. So here's my initial read. Gang. My initial read was that Marcus was trying to take this to time, and Francesco was going to try to KO all of Marcus's Pokemon. I have now amended my analysis. I am now firmly convinced that both players are operating with the goal to take this game to time and try to win on percent HP. There is less than a minute here. Both players are down a single Pokemon. Screamtail is incredibly low and will go down to a single attack this turn. Shadow Rider will go down to a Terra Starstorm. So Screamtail goes down here. Shadow Rider goes down to a Terra Starstorm. The problem for Francesco is that Wheezing is at full HP. The Tatsugiri cannot be KO'd, cannot be one-shot, because you did not break the Focus Sash. If Francesco broke the Focus Sash with Knockoff on the previous turn, that puts Francesco in a spot where Terra Starstorm KOs this Tatsugiri, or at the very least, puts this Tatsugiri low enough that you could potentially win on percent HP. You have Fake Out available again for the Incineroar, but both Pokemon can go for Protect here as well as Wheezing. That does mean you're relying on a double Protect, but you're no longer relying on double Protect there. Francesco did not select Knockoff, which I am almost certain that he has, unless there's not an attacking move. In which case, I think you should still Will-O-Wisp the Tatsugiri. I am going to personally go and check the moves here. I'm incredibly interested. I know this isn't our normal pace, but like I said, we're being a little bit more casual today. And unless I'm insane. All right, yeah, we're gonna look here. The Incineroar does have Knockoff. It does indeed have Knockoff. And Fake Out was not auto-selected. I'm incredibly interested at what the Fake Out selection was for Francesco there. Because again, that was a double Fake Out. Faked out the previous turn on the Dondozo. Took Rocky Helmet recoil damage. Went for Fake Out again. I think Knockoff there into the Tatsugiri. Again, Tatsugiris can be bulky or frail. This one had Draco Meteor, Muddy Water, and Focus Sash. Usually when you have Focus Sash, you're like, all right, oops, sorry. I get 2 lives. So I'm not going to invest in HP because I'm already going to survive no matter what. Knockoff there could have won it, but instead it goes to time. Marcus Co wins game number 1. We're going to strap in now for game number 2. So, game number 2, we see the exact same lead for Francesco Pio here, and we see the exact same lead for Marcus Co. Now, again, in the previous game, we saw Francesco go for the Fake Out into the Calyrex spot, and we saw the substitute come through for the Terapagos. If you are Marcus, you could potentially read this again. You know that your Weezing cannot get hit by Fake Out. You know that you are probably not going to get hit by a Terra Starstorm because you are then, if Francesco goes for a Terra Starstorm here, the Calyrex can simply not go for Terastallization. That means you can Poison Gas here, and even if the Tropicos gets a substitute up, you are poisoning both of Francesco's Pokemon. This is the other side of a stall tactic. A lot of stall tactics that we have seen have just been trying to hit fissures, have been trying to simply outlast the opponent in terms of HP, a lot of Ting Lu Dondozo stuff. But with the way Marcus is playing here, you have the threat of Calyrex to guarantee an opposing KO, and having Poison Gas here from the Weezing, which can right now, with no really clear protects here from Francesco's Pokemon, can put in a lot of work. So again, the Fake Out went into the Calyrex slot here. What the Tropicos is going to do here could define everything. Now, Tropicos goes for the substitute again, and Marcus Co has Poison Gas queued up here. No Toxic Spikes this time. Or actually, never mind. It is Toxic Spikes. I'm crazy. I thought he clicked Poison Gas. It is Toxic Spikes. Honestly, personally, I would have clicked Poison Gas. But also, I'm not playing in the video game. And Marcus Go has a pretty good mastery of this team, as we saw, or at least maybe. Now, Poison Gas here, again, doesn't feel too bad. You poison both the opponent's Pokemon. You saw that Francesco was happy to play incredibly slow. You also saw that Francesco was willing to swap out the Incineroar for the Rillaboom. And in that case, you can go for the same Terra Blast play that you did before. Poison Gas will also get poison onto the Incineroar, though, and with it being incredibly low from the, not Focus Blast, the Terra Fighting Terra Blast. My brain just goes to Focus Blast when I think of a fighting type blast move. Incineroar does switch out here. If you're Marcus Co, you're reading the exact same thing as the previous games, or his previous game. Francesco is also apparently reading the exact same thing as the previous game, thinking that this strategy was the winning move here. Rillaboom is poisoned. It's going to be taking Poison Chip here. We are going to see a Terra Blast here. It's going to be that Terra Fighting Terra Blast. I believe it's going into that Rillaboom again. Now again, for Francesco, are we going to see the Terastallization plus Terra Starstorm now, or are we going to see a Calm Mind? Calm Mind boost feels good. Yes, it is nice. It feels decent. But if you're Francesco, it didn't feel like Francesco had the advantage in most of that game. So are we going to see a different? That is a huge critical hit on that Rillaboom. That is massive. That alone could win this game in terms of damage. We see the Calm Mind come through from the Tropicos. But if you're Francesco, this is why you cannot copy every single move that you made in a previous game, simply because it can come down to these things like these critical hits. These random chance moves, not random chance, but these chance moves. Strange Steam now takes Rillaboom incredibly low into the red. It has one more turn on the field. There's not going to be a chance for Francesco to get a Terra Starstorm off to KO this Weezing, or for even Marcus to just swap out the Weezing. All Marcus has to do here is double protect, and even if we are following the exact same path as the previous game, Rillaboom is going to go down and put Marcus Co into an incredibly good position going into the later stages of this game, already up a Pokemon before even setting up Dondozo. Now, Francesco could have Heatran in the back. Heatran is a Steel type and cannot be poisoned. Heatran also gets absolutely bodied by Earthquake. If you're Francesco, this is one of the reasons why you may not want to Terastallize a Terapagos. It's a leftovers Calm Mind Terapagos as well. You want to try to take advantage of the Terra Shell as many times as you can. Leaving it as a Terapagos and getting a normal type Terra Starstorm is potentially not too bad of a thing if you have Heatran in the back and can Terastallize it away from that ground type weakness. But we are seeing the Terastallization come through for Francesco here. That is screaming to me that Heatran is not in the back. It is not being used as a potential answer either to the poison or as potentially to Dondozo. Not that I don't think that it would, but it would incredibly resist with some good Terastallization moves. Now, Terra Starstorm, I imagine, might come out here, or we could just see another Calm Mind potentially for Francesco. But we do see the Terra Blast come through. It is not double protect for Marcus. Again, if Francesco was reading that it was going to be that double protect again, as again happened in the previous game, this could be a Calm Mind. But we don't see protect come out from either Pokemon here. Terra Starstorm could put in a lot of work. That is Grimnay coming out of the Calyrex here. A Terra Starstorm should KO both of these Pokemon. It is Terra Starstorm. Actually, I don't know that it'll KO Weezing for sure, but it probably should. It will KO this Calyrex though. And we should likely see for Marcus the Dondozo and Tatsugiri in the back. It doesn't KO the Weezing. That is very, very big. So, Calyrex goes down. We are going to see, imagine we're going to see Dondozo coming in for Marcus Co here. Again, you are a little bit worried. Ooh, the second layer of Toxic Spikes is actually huge there. So, Marcus likely not going for the time win this time, and Francesco simply cannot afford to. Francesco will not have time. Every single Pokemon Francesco brings in from now on, and we do see that Dondozo Tatsugiri in the back for Marcus. Every Pokemon that Francesco brings in from now on will have 5 turns, I think is the math from Toxic, instead of 8 turns to try to play. That is not including potential attacks from the opposing Pokemon. Now, Marcus has some options here. Dondozo was the choice in the last game to switch in first, but right now you're in a spot where you're trying to take active KOs. You're trying to be pretty aggressive here. You're getting your opponent's Pokemon incredibly low, and having the option to now double protect in the face of Toxic being set up on the opposing team feels really, really good. Now, we do know that Weezing goes down to a second Terra Starstorm here. We do see the Tatsugiri come in. It'll survive a single Terra Starstorm unless it gets hit by another move. That Focus Sash would save it. And now with Fake Out on the field for Marcus, a double protect or potentially switching out into a Dondozo doesn't feel unreasonable. Incineroar is badly poisoned, aka inflicted with the Toxic status. It'll take 1/8 of its HP as damage this turn. It'll take a 4th next turn, or I'm sorry, it'll take a 16th this turn, an 8th the next turn, a 4th the turn after that, a half the turn after that, at least something like that. It increases almost exponentially turn, overturn, or multiplicatively. So Toxic, you take more damage the longer you're on the field. If you're a singles player, you might know that a little bit more. We do see the double protect come out for both of these Pokemon here. Again, this is just going to start Incineroar on a pretty rough train down into the dumps. Fake Out comes through. If you're Francesco, relatively easy read here. Calm Mind again on the Terapagos. Why not? Again, though, the threat of Dondozo in the back is just going to be incredibly hard to deal with. Does Francesco do enough damage through Unaware to beat the Dondozo before the Dondozo can KO the Terapagos? I don't know. What likely is going to be the case here, I can imagine, is that Francesco and Marcus end up in a spot where there is a Dondozo Tatsugiri alone on the field versus a Terapagos. Neither Pokemon can really KO each other, and it just ends up going to time. And since Marcus has 2 Pokemon because of Dondozo Tatsugiri, that wins the game. That is part of the reason why Dondozo Tatsugiri is so effective in stall formats or in stall game plans, because it's a Voltron, right? It is 2 Pokemon in 1. And unless you KO the Dondozo, unless you KO the actual raid boss, you are not going to win out the stall matchup. And Dondozo, especially with Rest and Sleep Talk, is incredibly hard to deal with. If we have Scream Tail in the back, that is a potential answer from Francesco. Terapagos avoids the Muddy Water. I don't think that is going to be the end of the world. Incineroar does take quite a bit from it. We see another Calm Mind out of the Terapagos as well. Again, substitute still up. If you're Francesco, I mean, you're Calm Mind boosting. You're hopefully not going to take too much damage from a Draco Meteor if the substitute somehow gets KO'd by Strange Steam. But Strange Steam now puts Incineroar down into the red. Parting Shot is going to come through. Next time Incineroar is on the field, though, it's going to have 1 turn to act. So Weezing's damage gets incredibly neutered here, but we see the Incineroar go back to Francesco. We're going to see Pokemon number 4 here. Again, there was also Ogerpon. No, it's going to be the Screamtail once again. Again, Screamtail is kind of the answer into the Dondozo here, but Screamtail is not long for this world already. Now, it can go for Encore. It can go for Disable. Disabling, I don't feel like disabling Muddy Water does much for you. And Draco Meteor could be the potential answer into this substitute. So I feel like you have to maybe Encore the Muddy Water, but this Weezing is still feeling pretty good. Terapagos could go for the opportunity here to try to KO the Weezing or and break Tatsugiri's Focus Sash, but again, Marcus can go for a double protect once more. Quite frankly, I don't know if there is a reason not to. You're going to continually get more damage onto this Screamtail, which has already taken 1/16 from the Poison Tick. It should be taking due to it switching in before the end of the turn, thanks to Parting Shot, it now should be taking 1/8 of its total HP. So we see Tatsugiri go for the Protect there. It's going to be a double Protect, I imagine, unless Marcus just wants the Weezing to go down. Yeah, so we see a Protect on both Pokemon here. Francesco, nothing to do with this Terapagos except go for Calm Mind or just go for an attack and try to play on a mistake from Marcus. We see Screamtail go for a Dazzling Gleam there, but again, the double protect there is pretty clear. Terra Starstorm does nothing. So these types of matchups, you have. I'm going to talk a little bit because we're just going to see some more of this out. I imagine we're going to see another cycle of Muddy Waters and Strange Teams. I think for Francesco, not hitting that Terra Starstorm on the previous turns where they weren't protecting feels kind of rough, but I digress. One of the things you have to do in these matchups is maintain a phenomenal mental state. It is incredibly easy to get a couple of calls wrong in these matchups. Your opponent does things you don't quite anticipate that are incredibly frustrating. For example, that double layer of Toxic Spice, that makes it infinitely harder for Francesco to win. Does it mean Francesco's locked out of winning? No. There's always a world, right? There's always a path. But, and like in the previous super long game where Francesco went for that double, accidentally click that double fake out instead of knockoff, one, that can happen because, oh man, you're stressed. You're worried about the game state. You are worried about this game. You're getting frustrated with a long game knowing that it's going to time and you're potentially not going to win. Going into game number 2, you have to lock in. You have to be confident in your moves. And so right now, while personally I am always advocating for players to get aggressive because it's quite frankly more fun to watch, there is also room where if you are going to lose the long game, which Francesco is, you have to get aggressive. There is no choice other than to get aggressive. But we see the Calm Mind come out again from the Terapagos. Now, Francesco, there's the opportunity where the Dondozo doesn't come out, so Screamtail encoring the Weezing doesn't feel terrible. But if you are Francesco, your Screamtail is going to get KO'd here in 3 more turns minimum. Dondozo does not have to rest. It can Just keep clicking attack buttons. We're going to get this Weezing coming in just a bit. It'll go down to another Terra Starstorm here, but Dondozo won't. It can just keep clicking Ice Fangs or Earthquakes, whatever it wants to click. It'll be able to rest up whenever it wants. It will not beat Terapagos in the long game, unless there are some crazy critical hits that happen. For Francesco here, taking it down Tatsugiri to a single HP is huge. That, like, in previous turns, KOing Weezing is huge. If you are able to somehow survive to a point towards the end of the game where you can get Dondozo low, or knock it out, then you are in a phenomenal spot. But you have to get damage through. I think Francesco here wants to try to get Incineroar out. I think this is the idea, is that Incineroar is going to get Intimidates off onto the Dondozo, and that might result in favorable trades for this Terapagos. But we already saw how much damage this Terapagos does to Dondozo. It is 32 damage per attack. That does not change with Calm Mind stat boost due to Dondozo having Unaware. The only time that would do anything is if Weezing was also on the field, which for Marcus, that's never going to happen in this specific case. We're going to see 30 some odd damage come out here from the Terapagos. That's exactly what we see. It's 31 this time even. I don't even know if Francesco has enough PP in Terra Starstorm to take out the Dondozo. Especially combined with Rest, I don't think there is a world where that is possible. Right now, Marcus could go for Rest, could go for Earthquake. Like Rest here, I think isn't terrible. Earthquake here, though, you get good damage onto the Screamtail. Terapagos is not going to be KOing you anytime soon. You'll break the substitute at some point, and we see the Encore come through. Earthquake is coming through anyways now for this Dondozo, but the thing is, I don't think Marcus is incredibly mad about that. I don't think that actually poses a problem for him. Screamtail takes it pretty well, but that poison is going to continue to do a ton of damage. The substitute goes down for the Terapagos here. Terra Starstorm comes through. Again, 30 damage. Big whoop. Terapagos can potentially go for a substitute again on the next turn, but I don't know if it's going to recover enough HP for that substitute to take enough damage from the Dondozo. We know that this Dazzling Gleam does not do very much as well, and so turn over turn, Marcus already has a Pokemon lead, a Pokemon advantage. Dondozo is not going to get, like, there is no world where, like, okay, so we could see the, Disable here. Disable could come through. Encore lasts for 3 turns. The problem is, Screamtail goes down within 2. Earthquake is not going to work on this turn. Screamtail is going to take an 1/8 of its HP here. It'll be down to about a quarter or less, and then it should take a quarter of its HP. Terra Starstorm comes through. It's going to do 32 more damage. Dondozo takes, I believe, 55 damage from its own struggles. I believe that's the total. So, for one more turn, Dondozo, yeah, there's one more turn of Encore here. I don't know if Screamtail goes down on this turn. It looks incredibly close. I think it might. So Dondozo took 12 points of HP there. He's going to take 80 some, I believe, total here. The struggle comes through. That should actually guarantee it. So I believe that did 55. Or somewhere around there. Terra Starstorm comes through. It's going to do 32. Okay, yeah, so Dondozo did about 50. Dondozo did 64 to itself. 30 more damage came through there. Screamtail goes down. There's no more Encore. Terapagos is up against the Dondozo that is about to click Rest and then Sleep Talk. Rest will bring Dondozo all the way up, and Francesco concedes the game. I know that wasn't too exciting. Again, I kept my voice a little bit down to save it, but I think genuinely there, in game number 1, the tipping point for Francesco was clicking that second fake out over the knockoff. When you're in those long games, navigating those scenarios is incredibly difficult. There are so many more choices that you have to make over the course of the game versus, or in a stall environment, which I want to be incredibly clear here. Both players were opting into that. That was not Marcus Coe forcing Francesco Pio into a stall game. That was Marcus pitching a stall game, proposing, shall we stall? Shall we slow things down? And Francesco going, let's stall. And both players played incredibly slow, incredibly defensively, but a single big mistake from Francesco there leads to the rest of that series going downhill. Now, obviously, there are always more choices you can make in Pokemon. Different choices in X or Y or Z situation does not constitute a mistake. But clicking that double fake out, that is a huge one that Francesco, I know, is going to be looking back at in the rest of his VOD reviews, which, if you're not VOD reviewing your own games, you should absolutely do it. It's great. Number one way to improve. Thank you so much for listening if you're here all the way to the end. Again, I know it was a little bit lower energy, but protecting the voice, protecting the larynx a little bit. Hopefully over the next few days, as we're covering Stockholm Regional Championships. Did I say Stockholm or Vancouver at the beginning of this? I meant Stockholm, if I said Vancouver. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring up the energy. But again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.